What a win for Purdue against Villanova, 80-74, the final. Purdue knocks off Villanova in the championship game of the Hall of Fame tip-off in Uncasville, Connecticut at the Mohegan Sun Arena. Unbelievable win by Purdue in this one. They were down for most of the game. They were down at halftime. I think at one point they were down 9 or 10 points early in the second half. Well, 11 points with 9 minutes to go in the second half. Found a way to win with a huge run to end the game. Zach Edey was huge down the stretch. Jaden Ivey, his playmaking continues to be probably the most impressive part of his game. Even though the shots weren't falling and he didn't have his best first half, this was a huge win for Purdue, and it was one that after yesterday's game, I came on here and talked about, yesterday's win being probably the more important one in the long term. Just get one of two at this event because all of these wins will age well in terms of non-conference seeding. But to get this one it's just icing on the cake, as you might hear the Boilermaker special going behind me in the background. It's just a great day. It's a great day to be a Purdue fan. What an unbelievable win. I didn't think they could do it at a certain point, but they came back. They were battle tested in this one. Villanova was really solid. But Purdue found a way, and they showed really everything that they're the team we thought they were. In other words, as I can't talk here, but this is the team we thought they were. They absolutely belong. Andy Katz of Big Ten Network, he always does those tiers. They belong in the top tier. This is a legitimate national title contender. To win a game like this against a team like this on short notice with, as I tweeted out, just 20 hours to do a scout on Villanova. This is a really tough team to beat in that context, right? Where you don't have time to scout them. As Fran Fraschilla kept mentioning, they were running that Spain pick and roll to death. That is extremely hard to stop when you haven't scouted for it, right? And yet, Purdue found a way to win. They have better talent than Villanova, and they have more depth than Villanova. They may not be as disciplined as Villanova. They're going to make more mistakes than Villanova. They had 11 turnovers to Villanova's 4. All of those for Villanova came in the second half. But when the moment was big in the second half, it was Purdue who rose to the occasion. Purdue who, Villanova started missing their free throws. They went 9-17 from the free throw line, and it was Purdue who made their free throws, who made the right plays, who knocked down the open threes. I mean, they were 10 of 23 from 3 in this game, and at a certain point it felt like the threes weren't going in at all. And then Isaiah Thompson got going, Sasha Stefanovic got going, Ivy had a big 3. For a long period of this game, Villanova just kept extending that lead, kept Purdue at arm's length, and it was just like, can we get this run? Because you knew if the run could happen, we could extend this lead. It happened. We extended the lead, and then we held on for dear life there at the end. And it's a huge win. It's easily going to be the best team Purdue plays for a very long time, because this is a seasoned team. It's a veteran team. It's a team who is uniquely suited to destroy Purdue on the offensive end, and they didn't. They went 13-34 from 3. Purdue mostly kept Gillespie in check. He had 14 points. Moore, I thought they could have done a better job closing out on some of his threes. Samuels was 1 for 8 from 3. Daniels was really good. He was 5 of 7 from 3. He made a lot of open threes. But for the most part, despite certainly some defensive shortcomings by Purdue, they held him in check. And I think this game was won because of that, but also because Villanova has 7 guys. They played 7 guys in the second game in 2 days, and even though they cruised to a victory yesterday, whereas Purdue kind of had to fight for it, Purdue got to play their 10 guys in their rotation. And the return of Mason Gillis certainly helped that. He was able to give 10 minutes. I thought he looked good defensively, still kind of finding his rhythm, getting into game shape on the other end. And the big thing with Gillis is that the guy in front of him, Caleb First, is just unbelievable. 5 for 5, 12 points, 4 rebounds, just making the right plays, doing everything right, hitting a huge corner 3 off an amazing kick out from Ivy late in the game. What more can you say about Caleb First? I mean, I feel like through my writing and going live after these games, I keep saying the same stuff, but it's just so impressive for a freshman to look this comfortable on this good of a team. There's a site called Evan Maya who uses this thing called the BPR to break down how good players are, and he had First as the 60-something best player in the country, and then like the 8th best freshman in the country so far, and that was after yesterday. And that just kind of speaks to where he's at. I mean, this guy is producing for a top 5, maybe even higher team, and it's just so impressive from 2A Indiana high school basketball last year. Nothing against Fort Wayne Blackhawk, but that isn't exactly, they're not exactly playing Villanova or North Carolina. So impressed by Caleb First. Purdue is 5-0. Let's kind of talk about some of the top performers in this one. Edey, 21 points, 6 rebounds. You knew he was going to be a factor in just 20 minutes again, which is crazy. So 42 points per 40 minutes. Look, you knew Edey was going to be a factor because of Nova's lack of size. Dixon, their center, he got him into foul trouble. Dixon's more of like he's kind of like a bigger Gillis. He's good defensively, but he's only probably 6'6", 6'7", bigger in terms of his size. And Edey was just, it was too easy. I mean, he was 9 for 12, 3 of 3 from the line. There were some moments where it looked like Purdue was trying to really force it inside to Edey, and I don't blame them given who they were playing and the size factor, but Sasha in particular had a couple turnovers trying to just fire that ball in there to Edey, and they can get reliant on Edey, but it's hard not to, right? I mean, the guy is so dominant, and when he gets it, it's almost always a bucket. So he's living up to everything we thought he would be. This was, where we said yesterday was a Travion game. This felt like more of an Edey game, even though they did go exactly 20 minutes each, because Travion did some good things as well. And there was a point in the game where they were defending Edey very well, but you just couldn't. He kept coming back in, kept getting a timely bucket. The last dunk where he bounced off his hands, he gathers it, steps through, hammers it down, and one. That was just unbelievable. He's the only guy in the country who could have made that play. And that was just unbelievable and kind of speaks to Edey's growth. And one of the other things with Edey is just the refs are still figuring out how to call a game that Edey's playing in, or at least this version of Edey is playing in. I talked about that on Twitter where I was like, they don't know how to call a game with this guy because they don't have to. He technically he gets fouled every play, but then there's also he's fouling the other guy most every play because of his physicality. So, you don't want to punish a guy just for being big. And I thought they did a decent job, actually. I know they missed some calls, but I thought overall with Edey, they called a pretty fair game because it's really tough. He's so physical. That means whoever's guarding him is going to be physical back. And then you just kind of have to make a judgment call, or you should let him play. Usually when they let him play, it's going to be advantage Purdue. Now, yesterday in the North Carolina game, if they're calling ticky-tack fouls, it's going to be advantage the other team. But, of course, Purdue ended up winning that game as well. Isaiah Thompson, who had 12 points, came up huge in the second half, knocked down, I think, 2 or maybe even 3 threes in the second half. He was, 3. It's 3. He was just unbelievable, just making open threes and spacing the floor. Played 21 minutes versus 19 for Hunter, so that's another. We can kind of look at these little splits between position now, right, that we have 10. Hunter was really good defensively, I thought. So he was he deserved playing those 19 minutes, but he just can't do anything offensively. and he was minus 16, Hunter was, which was the worst of anybody in the plus-minus. Not his fault necessarily, but it kind of speaks to how inept they were offensively when he was in there. And again, I'm not blaming him for that. It just is what it is. He can't run off screens and shoot the ball like Thompson can. And Thompson is so good in that regard. Knocking down big, open threes, getting loose off screens. He was a plus 22, which led the team. Again, that doesn't mean everything, but it just kind of shows you where he's at right now. Isaiah Thompson is really, really comfortable, and I've really enjoyed watching him play this season. He did a nice job on Colin Gillespie defensively. He was in his grill. He didn't let him post him up, as they talked about on the broadcast. I saw a lot of people complaining about the broadcast. That's fair, but I also thought they did a good job, at least for Villanova, breaking down their offense. Like, look, Gillespie wants to post up. Thompson didn't let him do that, right? That was impressive to me. Isaiah Thompson was really, really good defensively, can really shoot the ball when he's open, and just makes defenses pay because they load up on Ivy, they load up on whichever big is in there, and it's guys like Thompson and First who need to hit their shots. The two combined for 5 for 6 from the three. So they did that. Sasha Stefanovic did not do that. He was 2 of 7, but 6 assists. He continues to be this team's second best playmaker behind Ivy. Just post entries, making the right read. Sasha, as Painter says, always is smarter than everybody. Like he knows the offense better than the coaches. Painter says that sometimes. And it's true. I mean, the guy just knows what he's doing on the basketball court. Usually, and he'll shoot better than he did today. But he was very good. Played 33 minutes compared to Newman's 12. So Sasha is clearly someone that they want to have out there, and Ivy. Those are the two who are going to play the most minutes this year. Let's talk a little bit about Ivy. Struggled offensively because this was more of a half-court game. Against Carolina, it was more of a transition game, getting up and down the floor. That's where he's going to excel. But against, Villanova in the half-court, he struggles. He doesn't have much of a pull-up jumper, right? He needs to be set. He's like he is a 2 guard in terms of his shooting, and he is a point guard in terms of everything else, right? He is an unbelievable passer who can get inside. Like I've heard the Ja Morant comparisons. He can get inside, right? Play off 2 feet. But with Morant, it's like he can get to a pull-up jumper. Ivy just can't do that right now, and that's okay. He'll get better at that. But adding the 7 rebounds, the 7 assists, many of which were impressive reads, especially that kick out to First in the corner where he got up in the air. Last year, he probably shoots that shot. This year, he fires it over the corner for First, open 3, breaks the game open. Just really impressed with his unselfishness and poise. Did go 2 of 4 from 3. That was encouraging, including a really big one from the top of the key when Purdue needed points in the second half. He looks comfortable. I still think he's trying to find his half-court game, right? Because in Purdue's offense, and this will get better in the NBA, that's why he's such a coveted prospect. In Purdue's offense, there's no space for him to just take his man off the dribble. They're not playing 5 out, right? They're playing with a big in there, sometimes 2 bigs in there. And so if he gets off the dribble, there's always going to be help. So, it's a work in progress in the half court with Ivy, but he is probably the most electric player in transition in college basketball right now. We saw some of that in the second half, no doubt about it. Trevion Williams had a really nice game in the second half, coming in, the steadying presence. They were having a tough time guarding him. He does continue to make some really dumb foul calls. He was playing really well at the end there in the second half. Then he tries to reach in. Maybe it was a foul, maybe it wasn't, but you're always going to get called on that. So that was a little unfortunate. Why he did that, I'm not sure. But he did. He jumped in front, got fouled. Of course, that ended up letting us put Edey in, which actually resulted in that huge dunk at the end. And so that was good. But Trevion, he's disciplined in the post. It's so awesome. And I talked about this yesterday on yesterday's post game. But the difference between Edey and Williams, where you have to just, when one checks out and the other checks in, your mindset has to be completely different as a defender. Where if Edey's in there, you're trying to front him, you're trying to battle him. And then Williams, you're probably going to let him catch, but then it's the battle, right? The Edey, it's like, there's no battle after he catches it. It's a bucket. If he's unable to catch it, your goal is to make him make it difficult for him to catch the ball, because when he catches it, it's over. With Williams, the battle starts right when he catches it. So just fascinating kind of watching those two play offensively. Some of the other bench guys didn't do much. Morton, this wasn't a game for him. He's better in those transition games as well. But with Morton, it should be said that he does have to show some level of creation offensively. He can make an open three. He's proven that, but he just doesn't. In the half court, he can't really do anything else. And the worst minutes of the game were when he was out there with Newman and Hunter, and it's like, man, these guards, they just can't create for themselves. They just can't do it. And Newman did hit 1-3, but again looked uninvolved. And it's not his fault necessarily. It's just when your competition is Stefanovic, it's tough because Stefanovic is equally unable to create off the dribble, but his shooting gravity and the fact that he's averaging nearly now 6 assists a game, that's the difference. He's making high-level reads. He's in the right spot. That pick six he had on defense that brought, I think, Purdue within 1 or within 3. That's the difference. That's why Stefanovic is playing 33 minutes and Newman is playing 12. Because while Newman can get going as well from 3, he can't create, and he can't create for others. And unfortunately, that's just where it is right now. I think we will, if Newman starts to improve, maybe we see that change. But for right now, I don't really see that changing because Stefanovic is playing at such a high level, and he is really going to be missed after this season. He has been an unbelievable Purdue Boilermaker. It's just that's kind of everybody there that I just talked about. Feel free to throw some questions in the chat. I got a decent amount of viewers here. Yesterday we were able to talk a little bit about this Villanova game because we knew it would happen. Purdue's next game, I believe, is Friday at 2 o'clock against Omaha. So another bye game there before Florida State comes to Mackey on the next Tuesday. But this is a statement win. This weekend, the weekend in college basketball has been owned by Purdue. By Purdue, the team, Purdue, the brand, national media, everyone's at Mohegan Sun. Everyone has just seen Purdue go 2-0. It's a huge weekend for Purdue's brand. Recruits are watching this game, and this season can be a transformational one in terms of exposure and winning, primarily, right? I mean, they are going to win a lot of games this year. Purdue is for real, and I think we knew that going in, but, man, I don't know that they'll face another team this season as good defensively as Villanova, and they just dropped 80 on them. If this team is bringing, the only way I see this team getting blown out at all this season is if they just don't show up. If they show up to play, this team is going to be at least in every game, and they're going to win most of them because they're just such a well-balanced offensive team. Today, we saw them get down 11 points to a team with multiple super seniors. And on the road, not really the road, of course, it did sound like more of a Purdue crowd, which was nice to hear, but certainly with fans, right? They're down 11. It doesn't seem to be going their way. The majority of this roster has never played a road game with fans or even a neutral site game with fans. And they just push and push and push and come back and go on a huge run and win the game. It was so cool to see this team kind of grow up in front of our eyes and find a way to pull out this win that I don't think at that point, certainly, no one I was texting with thought they were going to win at that point. I didn't really think they were going to win at that point, but they did. They came through, and it's just so impressive that they were able to beat a team as veteran, as disciplined, as impressive as Villanova, really, with their shooters. This was a game where there was a stretch where Purdue just could not get a stop. They were running this Spain pick and roll that the broadcast kept pointing out, the screen-to-screener action, really smart and really hard to prepare for. I said this on Twitter, but Villanova's got to be the last team you want to play 20 hours after playing another game, right? I know Paint said that the assistants went and watched the game yesterday, and certainly they had some variation of a scouting report. I don't believe him when he says they haven't watched them at all before the Carolina game. I think they probably had. But, man, I mean, this team is disciplined, they execute, and they're old. And for them to pull this one out just speaks to Purdue's talent level. It is way, way greater than Villanova. Now, Villanova's more disciplined, and they're probably a more fundamentally sound team, but Purdue's talent level is miles ahead of Villanova, and that is a pretty impressive place to be, because I think Villanova's talent level is probably top 15 in the country. This is a Villanova team that really should have beaten UCLA the other day at UCLA. So this is a legit win. I don't think that's a hot take by any means, but I think we'll see Purdue jump into the top 3 of the AP poll tomorrow. I think we'll see Purdue, maintain its position in the top 4 on KenPom. I think they're up to number 2 on Bart Torvik, which are those are obviously some of the, analytical models and advanced stats that kind of track this stuff. Everybody, it's just a time to celebrate, There's no fan base in the country right now that wouldn't want to be Purdue, other than maybe Gonzaga. But, man, is this a fun team to watch. Man, is this a talented offensive basketball team that I think can play with anybody in the country. And this weekend's been all about Purdue in terms of college basketball, and we should enjoy that. We should enjoy all the, the Athletic and CBS Sports and all the national media, kind of throwing a parade for Purdue, because Purdue deserves it. They're really, really good. It's going to be a really fun ride to anyone watching this. Try to go see a game at Mackey. This is going to be a year that you're going to want to make that trip. If you're on the fence about, should I go up to Mackey for a game? You absolutely should, because there's not going to be a team this good, this fun, probably for a while. And maybe there will be, and if there is, we could become a bit of a dynasty here. But to have a guy like Ivy, to have a guy like Edey, I mean, those are 2 of the more unique college basketball players, just players we've seen in years, I think, in terms of Edey's size and skill, and then just Ivy's athleticism. I mean, Ivy's a very unique player. Edey's a very unique player. They're both on our team. We should enjoy that for the time being. I'm certainly enjoying it. I loved watching this game. I was fist bumping. I was sweating when they were not playing well defensively. But, it was just super fun. And I think everyone who's watching this probably had the same reaction, just into the game, loving watching this team. And just now we get a few days off. We get to enjoy Thanksgiving before we watch them play again. Kind of nice that we got the holiday tournament out of the way this weekend rather than having to sweat through it over the holidays. And we'll get Omaha on Friday in Mackey, which I think will be on Big Ten Plus again, so we'll be able to enjoy those fantastic broadcasts while we eat our leftovers watching Omaha. So I feel a little bit bad for Omaha. They're going to run into an absolute buzzsaw with Purdue, but there will be a time for that. Unless anyone has any questions, I have a good amount of viewers here. If you guys are wanting to ask questions, put it in the chat, comments, whatever the case may be. Go ahead, put it in the chat. Because, I'm here to answer it. But if not, I'll probably just wrap this up. Tomorrow at some point, I'll probably have a film thread up on Twitter where I just kind of rewatch the game and break down some of the plays. Comment from Benjamin Miller, who's been carrying these streams. Benjamin, shout out to you. Thoughts on Gillis' first game back? I thought he looked a little bit out of shape, but I liked what he did defensively. There were a few times where he switched on to Gillespie and did a great job. And I watched every game last season and watched it multiple times, and I can tell you, I thought Mason Gillis was Purdue's second or best defender last year behind Eric Hunter Jr. His switchability on the perimeter, his physicality, he's just so versatile. He could, and in a game like this, he could have guarded any one of Villanova's players, any one of their 1 through 7. He could have guarded any one of them effectively. His size on the interior, where he can take, probably not a Edey level big, but maybe like a Trevion level big, and he can hold his own on the interior because of his strength. But then he can also switch onto a Colin Gillespie and hold his own on the perimeter. Mason Gillis is a really, really good defensive player, and he's going to be huge for Purdue. Now, First, who played 24 minutes, looks like he just does not want to give up his starting spot, and I don't know how you can take it from him at this point. But Mason Gillis is going to be a huge, huge component off the bench. And even in today's game, at one point I was kind of thinking maybe go First at the 5, Gillis at the 4, to kind of, prevent the Villanova's three-point shooters from doing what they were doing. They didn't actually do that. I don't blame them because of the offensive advantage of Edey and Williams, but it might be something we see at some point. It's an interesting look. So, like I said, I will have a thread on Twitter at Aiden Kuntz tomorrow about rewatching this game, kind of breaking it down. I'll have a newsletter out tomorrow morning breaking down this game. I'll probably do some sort of like Hall of Fame Classic tip-off rewatch newsletter midweek for your Thanksgiving enjoyment. I thank you all for watching along here. Please tell a friend. We do this after every game. We will do this after every game moving forward, except maybe the Omaha game because I think I'll be driving back from Atlanta. But every game moving forward after that, we will be doing a post-game live stream where we can come, hang out, chat if you want to. The only person who has felt the need to type in the chat the last 2 days is Benjamin Miller. Shout out to you, Benjamin Miller. I appreciate your participation. But it's an 80-74 win for Purdue. They are the Hall of Fame Tip-Off Classic champions, beating North Carolina yesterday and now Villanova. 2 great wins for Purdue, 2 great non-conference wins for Purdue that will age extremely well when it comes to the seeding process in March. These are 2 wins that the selection committee will look upon very, very favorably come March. And, if there's a debate between Purdue and another team on the 1 or the 2 line or the 3 line or wherever this team ends up, I think Purdue may get the edge because of these great non-conference wins. Last note, 11 for the last 11 field goals Purdue made in this game. That's a pretty impressive offensive ceiling. Thanks for watching along with me, guys. This will be recorded and you'll be able to rewatch it if you would like. Subscribe to Boiler Basketball Breakdown on YouTube, Substack, and follow me on Twitter at Aiden Kuntz. Thank you so much for your viewership.